I think you started a little less than like 10 years ago. It's like 2009, right? When you
Yeah,
said
yeah,
you combine your passion to photography and writing. And I was
yeah,
like, okay, those are really like different things because like writing is like a text format and
yeah.
photography is like visual. So how did this like came together for you?
Yeah, for me, at the beginning, I started writing as an outlet just to express my feeling and all of that, not like a journal. Let's say some of them they were like a journal, another they were just random stories that I would imagine, and I was just putting together. So after I found photography and I started like getting into it, I found conceptual photography
Oh.
that where people were like making up stories and all of that. So I really wanted to try it. And I thought it was a good idea to try to take those stories and take it as a script for a movie. So like a direction, like to tell me about the that person and the feeling and all of that. So I was trying just to make it like when you make a movie, you have a script and
Mhm.
you just try to make the character and imagine how that person is, how is the person thinking and the dress and like the all the environment, how it would be, the feeling. So I try to make that in the photography. And since I found like conceptual where you can use Photoshop to actually add, extract, and put different things that maybe you don't have around. Although I thought it was perfect to do. So I tried to do that and I actually kind of like it.
Wow.
So because normally, when I write, I actually have like a scene in my mind. So
Mhm.
it's like I'm seeing when I am writing. So it was not that hard to actually, when I had like a medium to show it, it was
Mm.
not that hard because I already have like a mental picture of what I
Mm.
was writing.
I
Even
see.
though I didn't think about doing that at that time, but it's just the way my brain thinks. I
Well, I love it. So it was like telling stories through photography in a way. So it totally makes sense. And then how did you learn the technique? Because I mean, photography has so many components to it. Was it like through books, through like, I know, talking with other photographers? How did that happen?
I think it just happened like online, when I discovered photography. I first bought my camera, I think 2010, because I started actually making pictures with my webcam. So I didn't have a camera. And the result was not that bad. So I thought maybe if I have a camera, it will be like even better. So I bought my first camera, but I didn't know how to use it at all. So I bought like a small DSLR. So I was like, okay, let me just look for some kind of direction. But even at that time, I just learned the basic.
Hmm.
So as I was progressing, because I was taking pictures in automatic mode, so I was like, no, I think this is not gonna work. I think I need to learn like the proper settings, like the manual way to use
Hmm.
the camera. So I started searching online. So I get to YouTube and I started finding a video what they were explaining everything in the camera. Or it was okay, this is a good starting point. So
Yeah.
I started to learn a little bit deeper and then was just experimenting.
Uh,
So after I knew how every setting was working, I started just playing myself with the lighting and how I can position myself with from where it looks better, the angles and all of that. So
hmm.
I just learned the basic online and then start experimenting.
Wow. And how did like because like when I look at your photos, right, they look like very complex, like a complex production. You can see the scene, the lighting, the model, like they're all this, I love the boss, I guess, right? Like the spheres that
Yeah.
I love. So what's like your first photography is also like inspired by this? Because I'm like, this is a complex thing to do. How did you, yeah, like your first production happen?
I think it just came with time. So at the beginning, I was very focused on portraiture. So I will just take like regular portraits and I try to make it as nice as possible. I have said in few interviews before, but I wanted to be an actress before. So it was my original dream to become an actress. So I was very focused in how to express with my face. So I really wanted to experiment that with photography. So I was really using my face to show sadness or happiness or being in love. So at the beginning, I was doing a lot of like pure portraits. And then as I was progressing and started to find like feel more comfortable, I started to experiment with different things, like more like body language and maybe more wide angles, like show a little bit more of my body. And I also like art, so I was watching a lot of paintings, some of that. So I tried to mimic some of the positions of the models in the portraits and in those paintings. So I think it was little by little, and then the elements started to appear like later. I have said before too, I had a son in 2016, and he will have balloons at home because he really likes balloons. So they started getting like in the middle when I was making my pictures, he was there with the balloons. And then I found out that they photograph really nice. So I decided to start incorporating the balloons. And then I started to like getting like this meaning to the balloon just
Mm.
as it was making, because normally I do on a script before, I still do that. So I have like a little mock-up before of how I want the image to look like. I write the story and I like the color mood and all of that. So when the shooting day come, everything is goes smoothly. So I started like giving the meaning of the things that I was adding in my photography. So that including the balloons, because at the beginning I was using more flowers. Just naturally, I started incorporating flowers. The balloon came when my son came. So it's when the balloons appear. And the same with the origami thing
Mhm.
also started appearing at that time. So I think everything came naturally. So every element I started incorporating my photography like naturally, and now they are my elements. I always use go around the same.
I see,
And
because so sort of happened organically. Because I was about
yeah,
to ask, like, how do you come up with the ideas for it? Like, do you have it before? Do you like start to creating it, and then you're like, okay, I would love like balloons here. I would love like, I know flowers, or like you have this like scenario in your head before you start producing all of it.
it just happened naturally that way. And now I'm already doing intentionally. So I know which story I want it to be with flowers, or which story I want with balloons, and which one I want with origami thing. So now, depending on the story I'm writing, I know which element I want in, because I can, like I told you, I can see the picture in my head, and then I try to reproduce that picture with the colors and the mood, and everything comes together. But the
Mm.
positioning of the balloon, for example, it happens normally when I'm already like editing. I started placing them, and I started to see them like in the composition, and I know where which balloon has to be and the size of the balloon, because some of them are bigger, some are smaller in the same composition. They just, when I am already like in the editing process, is when I see them
Mm.
together, and then I know, okay, now it looks right.
How to place them. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Well, talking about like stories and scenarios, so it looked to me like when I went through, a lot of your works, like many times, like the face is like closed, like with the
Yeah.
flowers or balloons. So I was like, okay, this is like intentional. So what's the story behind it? Because it has this like mystery to it, right? Like makes you wondering.
Me, but it's like a character more when it's in the picture. It's not really about me. So that's one of the things where I cover my face. And the second, like I told you at the beginning, I was very focusing on portraiture. And then I started to focus more in my body language.
Mhm.
And I started feeling like it was better I started to learn how to transmit with my body and not with my face. So they became like, they really were showing what I wanted to show. I want people to be able to place themselves in that character position.
Mm,
So I feel like maybe if my face is out of the picture, it's going to be easier for the viewer to actually place themselves
mm,
in the image, because it's not about me. So it's like, okay, my face is not that important for the story of the picture. So I think my face doesn't need to be shown, but what is important is the feeling, what the person is going to feel when they see the body language, the position, the hands,
mm,
the elements, the colors. So that will help more the viewer to place themselves in that character position. So my
mm.
face started to be less important, and then was not necessary anymore.
Wow, I love it. It's a very wise move. Like now when you talk about it, I'm like, it's actually that makes so much sense because it helps you, yeah, to put yourself in this character and go through your own journey with the photography. So how does your day in the studio, like a day of work look like? Do you work like every day? Is it like every other? You like, I know, get inspired and then the next day you pr produce and
You
create.
know, at the beginning, when you start, you like want to practice all the time. Also, I was less busy. I was younger, so I was less busy. So I was a daily thing. So I was really eager to learn things. So every day I was trying to learn something. And then I get to when I wanted to like create like a body of work. So I was trying to work because I had like many stories written from before. So I started going through them and using them for that practice. So that was my work before 2016, before having my son, because I had more time. I was young and I wanted to experiment. So I was doing all of the things. And then after that, when I actually, because I think I started like working as a photographer, like selling my work after 2019. I think it was my first sale. So
Mhm.
I started having like less time because now I have to process the print and need to go sign, prepare. So I had less time. So I decided to make it a schedule, like maybe one picture per week. So every week I need to do at least one.
Mm.
So that's one. But now that I have been a couple of years, now I take pictures when I feel
Uh,
inspired. So I don't have like a set schedule. But like I tell you, that writing is always like a daily thing because I like to write. So I would write on my phone, on paper, because I'm still old school. So I still writing on paper with pen and paper. So and then when I have time, I go through them and I choose one to start like working on that image specifically. So I started looking for the elements. And now also at the beginning, I was shooting a lot indoors. So I didn't really need to go outside because I was shy to go outside, take a picture because they were self-portraits. People's gonna be looking. So I was very concerned about that. And then at some point I say, okay, who cares? I will go out and I will take the picture. If someone wants to ask, I would just reply that I'm taking a picture. And
Mm.
that's it. I don't need to explain too much.
I know.
So I started going out, so I wasn't, and then I got used to going outside and take pictures. Not many people ask, you just stop, look for a few minutes, and then they keep going with the day. So it's okay. So I started shooting more outdoors. So at that point, as I need a different routine because I need to go outside, take the places that I have available, what is there, to find out if I need a lot of processing, less processing,
Huh.
take.
And then what are these places that you like to go to? What are the most interesting places for you to observe people and the
Right
city?
now, I really like very desertic places. You know, my photography, it's quite kind of isolated. I really like solitary characters that
Mm.
they are in a very big, vast place.
Mm.
So I live in the Canary Island and they are volcanic islands. So it's kind of desertic most of the place. We don't have forest, we don't have jungles, we don't have rivers, we have the beach, and then we have like big places of land.
Mm.
So I really loving it because it just look isolated by itself. So
Mm.
it gives me, you know, you have that feeling of freedom because you have the big sky and then you have the mountains, and those are my favorite places because you have the work to of putting the elements. So everything is like a clean canvas,
Mm.
just yourself and the elements you place on them. No many things like calling your attention. Everything is a clean canvas. That's why I like this place. Even when I go to the beach, it's the same. You just have the sea and you have the sand of the rocks. We have a lot of rock beaches here, not only sandy. So it's just a clean canvas, just the big sky and the sea and yourself. And you can place your element and it's the focus of attention of the image.
Oh, I see. So you take a picture of the scenes like in this island and then you place like characters in them, right?
Yeah,
And
but
play
I
around.
take like for the character I shoot in the place. Even the balloons, I shoot everything in the place because of the lighting and the shadows and all of that. So I shoot all the elements in the place, and then I combine them together
Mm.
in Photoshop.
Wow, that's so interesting. And like I wanted to go a little bit back to like when you say you're writing, right? So when
Yeah.
you write, what are you writing? Like is it your thoughts, stories, or I don't know, something you're inspired by, or when I like, like a to-do list in a way where you're like, okay, I want to like
Yeah.
see that.
I think it's a mix, a little bit of everything, because sometimes I get very inspired and about maybe, for example, at nighttime I write the most because I feel very inspired, like when I see the sky and the stars and the moon. So I really feel like I want to write that maybe about love story about thinking about the loved one, if they may be looking at the same moon as you are looking at, things like that. So I started like writing like in a poetic way, like a very nice way where you don't talk normally. So I like to write like that, very melodic, very romantic. And that's just invented thoughts that I think about because actually I don't have any lover there looking at the moon, but I just put myself in that feeling. How would I feel if I
Mm.
would feel this way? So I would write like that. Sometimes I thoughts. I like to really look at the people when I go out, the body language, sometimes the conversation a little bit, so I can get an idea of how that person can be. So that really inspire me, and I write stories about that, about other people loves the stories, about all that kind of things, and I really like it, really inspire me. So I write about that. So many times I write about love, but it's not like directly like related to me. It's maybe other people's love story that I see
Yeah.
and I feel and imagine that it can be like this, or even me in a platonic love story, it can
Wow.
be like this. So
That's fascinating to me that like you're working with the visual, like strong visual component, and then you
yeah.
also have this like, writing side, because I think usually and very often for artists, you don't want to like share, you'd be like explaining how you got there. And do you have photographers or like artists that you like inspired by, or like the one that you like, perhaps like living or the one that already passed?
I really like, for example, at the beginning when I started to do photography, I knew like I discovered this on Flickr. It's Brooke Shaden.
Mhm.
She do a lot of she does self-portraits too, but she is like more like dark art.
Mhm.
But I really liked it because I really like her approach when she is planning her work. So at the beginning, when I didn't know nothing about conceptual photography, I found her and I saw that, oh my God, it's really possible to do something that it's not in the reality.
Mhm.
Because, when you are not into photography, you think that photography is like photograph what it's already available in the world. So
Ah.
so I was like, old school photography that you take in a scene, like a wedding or something like that. You don't add anything that is not there. And
Mm.
when I discover her, it's like, oh, it's more like a painting. You actually have an idea and you put it together with the camera instead of pencil, of with brush, of with painting. You do it with photography. So you can compose it as a photograph, as a painting, like something that is in your mind.
That is so, I love, I've never thought about it that way, but now when you talk about it, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Because like, yeah, I think that everyone tend to think that it's about whatever you see, you take a picture, but it's like you create a scene and you tell the story. So what is photography? It's a bit of a wide question, but must ask, what is photography for you?
I think for me, it's a tool. For me, it's a tool to paint my story, my vision. It's not something to just capture reality.
Mm.
It can capture dreams as well. So it's like a tool, like I said, like a brush or like paintings. It's my brush to paint my scenario, the one that I have in my head.
I can see. I love how it's like you can share that way with the people. Yeah, whatever like you go through, like also the emotion and feeling. And I wanted to go a little bit back to the times when you're so when you said 2019, you moved like completely to like become a photographer. Do you
Yeah.
remember a moment, maybe it was before or after, when you were like, Well, I am like, this is like, I'm a photographer. Like, this is what I'm a photographer, artist. Like, do you remember this like realization? Because it's also a brave move, right? Like
Yeah.
at the turn, be like, okay, now I'm like, this is what I do.
Yeah, at the beginning when you start, I was seeing just as a hobby. Even as close at 2018, I didn't even think about I could make a career out of photography because I was like, it's something that makes me happy, something like fun. So normally, if you have to work, it's not fun. You have to work. It has to be something like you have to do. So I didn't even thought about making it a career, but as I was progressing and doing the photography and share it online, I started to see like, oh, people actually like it, and I'm actually sharing something that is worth to share, so people can learn and feel things from my art the same way that I do with other artists. When I
Mm.
see paintings and I see other photography, I enjoyed it and I would like to have them in my house as a reminder. And I thought like maybe if I can just put them online because I think now they are good enough to actually offer them as as a print, as something for the person to have in the house. I think it's beautiful and doesn't have only like aesthetic value, but also have um like a sentimental value because now they can learn something, has a lesson in it.
Mm.
So maybe someone is interested. So I decided to put it out there. But even at that time, I wasn't feeling that much. And suddenly it sell. And I was like, oh my God, so somebody like it enough to actually pay for it in having in their home. So I think it worth it. So I
Mm.
started to have that approach and I started open to the possibility that I can make a life from this
Mm.
because people like it and it's valuable. It can help, and we have art everywhere. Art is necessary. So maybe I can add my view of the world. I can share it with other people. And from that on, I was like, okay. So after I think 1 year selling, I was like, okay, I think I am an artist now. So at the beginning, you don't even think about yourself because, for example, when you go into contest, I started going into contest and they ask you if you want to apply as a professional or as an amateur, and you are like, okay, or I'm an amateur or I'm a professional. So until recently, I started thinking, oh, I think I'm a professional now. I can call myself a professional now. Now.
That's
So,
that's incredible to me, like, this humbleness you have, which is like, for some reason, I think it's mostly when like you're really talented, you're really like humble about like your journey and be like, oh, well, now I guess I can because the people see what I see. So now
yeah.
I can process through it. And do you have like, I don't know, let's call it crazy dream, long-term vision for your like works in many years where you would ideally would want to see them, like gallery, museums, admirers walls, like where would it be for you?
I think I have been in magazines already. So, okay, magazines already, I can cross that one. And then where else? I have been like in hotels, in book covers. I think for me, book covers was one big dream because because I used to work in a hotel. And every time I would go like into the room to clean the room, I will see the books on top and I was like, oh, it will be so beautiful. In my picture will be in a book cover. And now I have them. So it's a dream come true as well. So I think now, like so I wanted to be an actress. I think to create like a movie poster is
Mm.
one of my dreams. I love movie posters and I and still do that exercise. Like I watch a movie and I try to imagine how would I make the poster of this movie. So how this scenario would be, which I will use. So that it will be a big dream, like to make like movie poster. Doesn't have to be me the one, but I have to be the one, like the mind creating that.
You
That
never know. I can see that
yeah, I
happening
never know.
though.
Who
I'm like,
knows? Yeah.
I think it's important though, right? Like to talk, to say, and like, okay, this is like what I
Yeah.
see. And if the movie, like, what if the movie would be about? And it doesn't matter. You're like, whatever, like, comes like that would be. Or do you have like an idea, like romantic
Yeah,
drama?
it might be like a romantic drama. I really like dramas. I really like a lot of deep stories where very like complicated characters that really have a lot of thinking. I'm not a big in comedies because normally the characters are very shallow. So I really like very deep, like conscious movies, like indie movies where everything is slow,
Mm,
everything is slow and you get to experience every single feeling. That's the style that I like. So that's what the one that I will go to,
no.
like a big field and the character there, like you can feel it. So that kind of things I would like.
Yeah, yeah, like it's
Definitely romantic drama, probably.
perfect. Romantic drama, and that's how it always goes. Hey, so I want to talk a little bit because you mentioned, you're a mom also. And I mean, I think it's such a broad topic, work-life balance, whatever. Like, how do you find your way through this?
I think now that my son is a little bit bigger, everything is easier now because now he does his things and he know mommy is doing her pictures, so he doesn't come and bother me when I'm shooting here and when I go out, so he doesn't bother. So sometimes he goes with me and he just sit down. He wanted to help me and like I will hold the balloon for you, and he actually offered his help. So now it's easier, but before I will have like less time. So when the baby will be sleeping, I will try to have everything ready and go quickly and do something. And then when he would sleep, I would be editing when he would be resting. But then at that time, I wasn't selling, so I was less busy. I was just shooting when I had time. But the time I started like shooting on a schedule, he was a little bit bigger, so it was very easy because he would sit playing or he would be sleeping, and I would have like enough time to do something productive that
Right.
day. And
So like,
now I think he's already used to it, like my job, that this is my job, and he's really helpful and he knows and he understands that mommy has her time and I do my things. And then when she's free, we can do something together.
oh, nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like it makes sense, like navigating journey as
Yeah.
is. And I wanted to ask you like about, I guess like we'll have the times when like you feel down or like a dark or whatever, maybe like not on a daily basis, but back like, in times or even now. How do you navigate? Like, how do you approach this feeling? Like how?
I think as before, writing is always my first resort. I just try to find out what I'm feeling. So I try to get deep of why I am feeling this way. What was the trigger? Or so I'm very like thinking person. So I really even for feelings, I try to find the origin of it. So when I feel sad, I try to find the situation that actually triggered that feeling and I try to work in it. I try to change the story around that triggering situation and I try to go out of it. So I try to take after writing that and finding out why did I feel triggered by this situation. I try to change it, like giving another meaning.
I love that. I think like changing narrative is really important, like facing the emotion
It
and then
is.
like figuring out how to navigate it. So it's a little off topic, but say you have like unlimited funds, right? Like to get like an artwork or photography or sculpture that you love. So whose work would it be for you?
Maybe some Van Gogh image. I
Mm.
like the Starry Night. It's one of my favorites. I love blue and yellow. They can see in my work that I love it. And it's like he has these kind of images that they are sad, melancholic, they are happy, they are colorful all at the same time. So I really like that feeling. I also like Salvador Dali, a Spanish painter. He have these surreal images like the perseverance of memory. I think it's this with the clocks that they are melting. I really like that one because you have this big scenario and you can see the sky at the end. You can see, so I really like that one. So
Mm.
maybe those two. And I can take some others, but let's stop with that two. I think the France is going to be gone, but do with this just these two.
Those are great choices, though. I'm perhaps my last question for you is that what keep you going as like, knowing like that photography is like your calling and like on every day, like what is it for you that
I think I just love the idea of putting on earth images that wasn't here before. So that feeling of adding something new. So I always that think about that. I was like, if I don't invent it, maybe nobody is going to invent this image. So I'm actually adding something new that wasn't here before.